let's be real for a moment. Life doesn't always play fair, does it? Sometimes it shakes you, it blindsides you, it brings you to your knees. And in those moments when the ground beneath you crumbles, when the people you trusted walk away, when the future feels uncertain and fear wraps around your chest, you're faced with one question. Am I going to survive this or rise from it? I don't care how strong you are, how successful you seem, how many people count on you. We all face moments that terrify us. But here's the truth most people never hear. You don't need to wait to feel brave. You need to choose to become it. Today, I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to remind you of who you are at your core. I'm here to walk you through the 6 shifts that will unlock the courage already living inside you. If you stay with me for just a few minutes, I promise you this. You'll walk out stronger, clearer, and ready to face what's ahead, not with fear, but with fire. You know, one of the biggest lies we've been sold is this idea that brave people aren't afraid, that somehow courage means the absence of fear. But let me tell you something I've learned from life, from people I've coached, and from my own experience being knocked flat on my back more than once. Bravery begins with truth, and the truth is, if you're breathing, you're going to feel fear. The difference between people who break through and people who stay stuck isn't that one feels fear and the other doesn't. It's that one group has learned how to face it, own it, and walk through it anyway. You see, most people try to pretend the fear isn't there. They bury it under busyness. They numb it with distraction. They smile and tell the world they're fine while something inside them is screaming. But the problem is, what you refuse to feel will find a way to run your life. Fear that's hidden doesn't disappear. It grows in the dark. It whispers lies like, you're not enough, you're going to fail, what if they judge you? And those whispers, they become beliefs. And those beliefs, they shape your decisions, your relationships, your future. But here's what most people never do. They never stop and look it in the eye. They never say, okay, I see you, I feel you, but you don't get to lead me anymore. That moment right there, that is when transformation begins. When you stop resisting the fear and start leaning into it with curiosity. Because when you name it, you take back control. When you say, I'm scared of losing everything, or I'm terrified of being rejected, or I don't know if I'm strong enough, you're not weak. You're powerful. Because now you're no longer dancing around it. You're standing in front of it. You're calling it out. And the second you do that, fear loses its ability to dominate you in silence. Look, I've coached people who were facing divorce, bankruptcy, cancer, betrayal, moments when everything felt like it was falling apart. And in every single one of those situations, do you know what the turning point was? It wasn't when they suddenly felt brave. It was when they chose to stop running from the fear and started walking through it. Because that's when life starts to bend. That's when courage shows up. That's when you realize fear is not the enemy, avoidance is. Denial is, pretending is. But honesty, that's the first act of bravery. So if life feels scary right now, good. It means you're alive. But don't waste energy trying to escape that fear. Use it. Let it be the alarm clock that wakes you up, the fuel that drives your next move. Because once you face it, you take its power and you turn it into your own. This is where your courage starts. Here's the deal. Fear is going to show up. Always. That voice in your head, the one that says, what if this goes wrong? Or what if I'm not good enough? It's not going anywhere. But here's the real question. Who's in charge? Who gets the final say in your life? That voice of fear or you? Every single day, whether you realize it or not, you're making a choice. You're either letting fear drive the car or you grabbing the wheel. And too often, people hand over the keys without even noticing. Fear starts small, a doubt, a hesitation, a little voice in your head. But if you don't challenge it, it builds momentum. And the next thing you know, it's not just influencing your thoughts, it's running your decisions, your relationships, your future. Fear starts telling you where to go, who to trust, what to avoid, what to never try again. It becomes your ruler, but only if you allow it. You have to decide that fear doesn't get to lead anymore. That voice might still be there, but it's not in control. You are. And the moment you make that decision, the moment you draw that line, everything begins to shift. It's not about being fearless. It's about being in command. It's about standing up inside yourself and saying, I hear the fear, but I refuse to follow it. You want to know what separates the people who live a bold, meaningful life from the ones who stay stuck in patterns they hate? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not that one group never felt afraid. It's that they decided to lead their life instead of letting their emotions lead them. They got clear. They said, enough. They stopped reacting and started choosing. And when you do that, when you stop letting fear dictate your direction, you begin to tap into something much more powerful, your vision. Because when fear is in charge, your life becomes about survival, about staying safe. But when you're in charge, your life becomes about creation. You don't play defense anymore. You play to win. You build. You reach. You stretch. You risk. And yes, sometimes you stumble. But it's no longer the end of the world. It's part of the climb. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, frozen by what's ahead, let me ask you right now, who's been in control? And are you ready to take the wheel back? Because once you decide, truly decide, that fear no longer gets to drive, everything else opens up. This is the moment you reclaim your power. You ever notice how some people face unbelievable adversity, loss, betrayal, bankruptcy, illness, and still find a way to keep going? They still show up. They still fight. They still push forward when everything in them wants to quit. And it's not because they're stronger than you. It's not because they don't feel fear or pain. It's because they've tapped into something deeper, something that goes beyond the moment, beyond the struggle, beyond themselves. They've locked into their why. Because when fear shows up, and it will, you need a reason to keep going that's bigger than the fear itself. You need something that pulls you through even when your mind is screaming stop. When your why is strong enough, you'll walk through fire. You'll move mountains. You'll take the risk, face the pain, and lean into the unknown because something inside you knows this matters more than your comfort. That's the thing. Bravery without purpose is just recklessness. But bravery rooted in mission, that's unstoppable. That's the kind of power that doesn't burn out. And I'm not talking about some shallow reason like, I want more money or I want to prove people wrong. That won't last. I'm talking about the kind of why that grabs your soul, the kind that makes you emotional just thinking about it, the kind that's connected to your values, your family, your calling, what you were born to do. If you're a parent, maybe it's the example you want to set for your kids. If you've survived something hard, maybe it's the message you know someone else needs to hear. Maybe it's the legacy you want to leave, the people you want to serve, or the life you refuse to settle for. Whatever it is, you've got to find it. You've got to name it. You've got to let it drive you. Because when you know your why, the fear doesn't go away, but it gets quiet. It starts to shrink. It becomes background noise instead of the main character. And suddenly you stop asking, what if I fail? And you start asking, what happens if I don't try? That shift changes everything. Some of you have been waiting to feel brave before you. Take the next step. But let me tell you the truth. Bravery isn't born in waiting. It's born in commitment. It's born when you decide that what you're fighting for is worth the fear, worth the pain, worth being misunderstood, worth getting back up 1,000 times if that's what it takes. So if life feels heavy right now, if fear is loud, if the road ahead looks uncertain, don't just try to silence the fear, ignite your why. Remember what you're here for. Reconnect with the fire inside you. Because when your mission becomes non-negotiable, your courage becomes inevitable, this is where your strength takes root. Courage isn't just a mindset, it's a state. And the mistake most people make is thinking they have to feel brave before they act brave. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt fully confident, energized, unshakable, but while slouched over, breathing shallow, talking to yourself like a victim? Probably never. That's because the body and the mind are not separate. Your physical state creates your emotional state. If you want to be brave, you have to train for bravery. Think about it. Fear has a pattern. It shows up in your physiology. Your shoulders tense, your breathing shortens, your voice gets small, your energy drops, and then your mind starts to follow. It says, maybe this is too much. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I should wait. That spiral isn't just mental, it's physical. But here's the good news. You can interrupt that pattern. You can shift it in seconds. And when you do, your emotional state transforms just as fast. This is why I don't wait to feel strong. I create strength. I don't hope for courage to show up. I summon it every day with my body, with my breath, with my words. Because I know that bravery is not something you randomly feel. It's something you condition. Going to the gym. You don't get strong by thinking about lifting weights. You get strong by showing up and doing the reps, even when you don't feel like it. It's the same with your inner state. You train yourself for power by doing it daily. Movement, intensity, presence, those things generate momentum. They wake you up. And when you start stacking those habits, that energy becomes who you are. You walk differently. You speak with more certainty. You begin to embody courage long before the world ever sees it in your actions. You want to face life's storms with power. You can't wait until the storm hits. You've got to prepare your state before it arrives. When chaos comes, and it will, your nervous system will default to whatever you've trained it to do. So if you've been practicing fear, playing small, sitting in hesitation, don't be surprised when that becomes your instinct under pressure. But if you've been training presence, if you've been choosing movement, breathing deep, standing tall, focusing with intention, then even in the storm, you'll find your center. And listen, this isn't about hype or pretending to be something you're not. This is about activating what's already inside you. You already have the fire. You already have the warrior, but you've got to wake it up every single day. Not when it's convenient, not when life is easy, especially when it's not, because courage isn't something you turn on when you need it. Courage is something you live into. And when your state is strong, fear has nowhere to land. This is how you rise before the world ever sees you win. One of the biggest things that holds people back from stepping into their power is this crushing fear of failure. That voice that says, what if it doesn't work out? And what if I mess up? What will people think? And so what do? They play it safe. They hesitate. They shrink. They choose comfort over courage and tell themselves it's just not the right time or they're not ready yet. But let me tell you something. Failure is not the enemy. Failure is the process. It's not something to fear. It's something to use. Every person who has done something extraordinary, every leader, every champion, every builder, every trailblazer, they all failed. Not once, over and over. Because failure is not a detour from the path, it is the path. You fall, you learn, you adjust, you grow. You don't become strong by succeeding all the time. You become strong by facing resistance, just like your muscles do when you train them. No resistance, no growth. The problem is we were trained from a young age to avoid getting things wrong. In school, you make a mistake and it's marked with red ink. In society, you fail at something and people whisper about it. So it'll learn to associate failure with shame. But that mindset is toxic because if you're too afraid to fail, you'll never truly try. You'll never stretch. You'll never risk showing the world what you're capable of. You'll build a life of safety instead of a life of significance. You want to know what the brave do? They flip the script. They don't look at failure as defeat. They see it as data, as feedback, as refinement. They don't ask, why did this happen to me? They ask, what is this teaching me? They know that falling down is part of the price of rising up. And every time they hit the ground, they rise with more clarity, more wisdom, more fire. Some of you are carrying around old failures like proof that you're not good enough. You're still judging yourself for what you didn't get right 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But what if that wasn't a breakdown? What if it was a breakthrough in progress? What if that moment, yes, even that painful one, was the thing that shaped you into who you need to be to handle what's next? Listen, if you're going to be brave, you have to give yourself permission to fail forward, to fall without losing your fight, to stumble and still stay in the game. Because you're never going to grow in the safety zone. Bravery doesn't come from never falling. It comes from rising faster every single time. So stop waiting to be perfect. Stop waiting to get it right the first time. Show up, mess up, learn, adjust, and go again. Because in the end, failure doesn't define you. How you respond to it does. Is how you build unshakable resilience. Let me tell you something that most people overlook when they're trying to build courage. Your environment is either building you up or it's breaking you down. You can be doing all the right inner work, facing your fear, owning your power, getting clear on your why. But if you're surrounded by people who are stuck in fear, who play small, who talk themselves out of everything, eventually that energy gets on you. And I don't care how strong you think you are, if the people around you don't believe in possibility, it becomes harder for you to believe in it too. We are tribal creatures. Whether we realize it or not, we're constantly absorbing the mindset, the language, the emotional temperature of the people closest to us. So if your circle is full of negativity, excuses, small thinking, don't be surprised when your courage starts to shrink. Not because you're weak, but because you put yourself in an environment that doesn't support strength. You've got to be intentional about who you allow into your space. You've got to protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. If you want to be brave, you've got to surround yourself with brave souls. People who challenge you, not coddle you. People who hold you to your higher standard, not your fears. People who believe in your vision, even when you forget it for a moment. And I don't just mean people who cheer you on. I mean people who live it, who model it, who remind you what's possible just by the way they move through the world. And I know some of you are thinking, but what if my family doesn't get it? What if my friends aren't on the same path? And listen, I get it. This isn't about cutting people off. It's about balancing your inputs. If the people closest to you aren't building you up, then you've got to find other places to fill your tank. That might mean mentors. It might mean podcasts, books, events, communities, whatever it takes to immerse yourself in a space where courage is normal and growth is expected. You've got to feed your mind and soul with voices that lift you. People who walked through fear and didn't let it win. Because when you're surrounded by that kind of energy, something shifts inside you. You stop second guessing yourself. You stop shrinking to fit in. You start expanding to rise up. You realize you're not alone, and that alone makes you stronger. So if you're serious about becoming braver, you can't just work on your mindset. You got to upgrade your environment. Be around people who remind you of your strength. People who live from vision, not from fear. Because the right environment doesn't just support your courage, it ignites it. This is how you build a life that pulls the brave out of you every single day.